I just can't get quite enough of this Twitter feed tonight by Marcus Not Realius.
Oh, Marcus Not Realius?
Yeah.
Everybody should follow Marcus Not Realius.
Hey, by the way.
Yeah?
I'm in love with you.
I'm in love with you too. Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
Right. Welcome to the Liberty Without Compromise live stream broadcast. We are the only live, local, politically conservative, and liberty-minded program in Kootenai County. We expose political power players, politicians, and influencers. There's lots of them on all the platforms: Facebook, Instagram, X, formerly Twitter. We're your hosts, Dan and Dawna Wilson. I'm here to screen your questions and comments. Tonight, we'll be taking phone calls. That phone number is 208-366-4671. Again, 208-366-4671. I will answer your call, but since I'm producing and co-hosting, I will answer your call. You'll be on hold. Just hang tight until we bring you up into the program. You can also always participate by putting those comments and questions into the comment section on whichever platform you're watching. And for those of you watching live with us tonight, make sure to share this feed to your page or profile. Listening back to our podcast, be sure to catch us live every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Also, a reminder, as we do every week, opinions expressed are ours only and not necessarily that of any of our advertisers, sponsors, or affiliates. Now, ladies and gentlemen, here's your host, Dan Wilson.
Howdy. It's about time you finally got on here. How are you, all my friends across these fruited plains right here in Kootenai County and beyond? And of course, a special shout out to all those in Rio Linda, California. You know who you are, and just want to make certain you feel welcome, even though we're talking about Kootenai County politics primarily.
Well, you had a comment on YouTube that knew exactly what that meant.
Mm-hmm.
So, ditto head.
Old Rush Limbaugh.
Ditto head.
Liberty Without Compromise. It is a continuation of the fight that I began in 2024 when I ran for Kootenai County Sheriff right here in Kootenai County. And of course, I was not successful in my bid, but I was successful in the awareness that we were able to raise because, of course, you were there every step with me along the way. And we started talking about liberty and how important it is for each and every American who holds these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and are endowed with certain inalienable rights. Well, this is what we talk about right here on the Liberty Without Compromise show. Now, tonight, we're going to be discussing, does Brent Regan have a chokehold on the political narrative right here in Kootenai County? This is something that we talk about quite often. Now, I didn't give you a slide for this, okay, but I'm mesmerized. I have been following, I assume it's a guy on Twitter, on X, named Marcus Not Realius. And if you go to my Twitter page, the Idaho Sheriff, I just posted how you can follow him. I'm assuming it's a he, since it's Marcus, so I'm going to call him as he. Seems to have a very good grasp.
You never know these days.
I know. Very good grasp on what went down at the Kootenai County Republican Central Committee infamous town hall back in February. He's been breaking it down for weeks now. All the little small details that counsel for Mrs. Bornpole is going to like, and exactly why Brent Regan isn't as secure as what he thinks in his virtue signaling, his running around. We're going to talk about Brent and his latest attempt to turn the truth, but we're also going to be talking about quite a few other things. An AG investigation into Sheriff Robert Norris might be in progress or right around the corner. And of course, we're also following very closely the saga of all things going on at Kootenai County Sheriff's Office and a possible detractor that we talked about last week. We were given a tip and we may have found the identity of that individual. We're going to talk about that as well and so much more. This is going to be a fast-paced, full-packed hour and 10-minute broadcast.
Yeah, it's always a fun time when you get some intel on somebody who's been a chronic pain in the Yeah.
Yeah. Ass.
Yeah.
I'll say it.
You'll go ahead and say it. You know what? I have been losing sleep this week ever since I found out I have a low cranial top.
Whoa. A low cranial top.
I don't know if that means there's more or less room for brains, but apparently a low cranial top is you have less distance from here to the top of your head.
Well, how would you understand that?
It makes us girls look like we have less volume in our hair. And apparently the high cranial top is a more sought after head shape.
What's mine?
I don't know.
What is mine?
I don't know. I want to remind you guys that we are doing a giveaway of this premium embroidered Liberty Without Compromise snapback trucker hat. You can only obtain this through entering into the contest on our website at libertywithoutcompromise.com. There's a link there right on the homepage. Tells you what exactly you need to do to enter and some things you can do to get additional entries into that giveaway.
And we've been getting quite a good response so far. So
we have, and we have been seeing around town Liberty Without Compromise t-shirts, but especially my most favorite photo submission this week, I don't have it to put up, but was the cowboy collection of the Liberty Without Compromise shirt. And that looks fantastic. So those are available now for anybody to purchase in various sizes, styles for men and women. If you're into crop tops, we have those all available on the website at libertywithoutcompromise.com. And you can choose what fits for you, even other name brand type shirts if you want to spend a little bit more. And it's a great way to help support the program too.
Yeah. And I understand that 2 spottings have been made at the Kootenai County Republican Central Committee monthly meetings. I believe City Councilman Dan Dawna has been spotted wearing a Liberty Without Compromise t-shirt, along with PC Mark Stewart.
Oh, yeah,
And of course,
that's ruffled some feathers.
Mark Stewart came on this very show mere hours after that infamous town hall event to give us a play-by-play, and he was rewarded by Brent Regan and all the cackling jackasses with a suspension from the committee that he was a part of. We're going to see his name attached to some documents tonight, but remember, he is a man that is for liberty for all and not just for a select few. So keep those shirt spottings, captured on, what is it? Videotape, whatever.
Captured on film.
I know. I'm getting old.
Captured on film.
Keep them coming our way. And if you give us permission, we will share them. So
yeah, what else was I going to say? We are taking op-ed submissions also over on our website at libertywithoutcompromise.com. So if you have something on your heart and on your mind that you want to be able to publish and share across a greater platform, you can submit those pieces on our website, and the button is right up there in the menu bar on our website. A reminder for those of you just joining us, we are taking phone calls into the program at 208-366-4671. I will answer your call. You'll be on hold, and we'll bring you up into the program to talk to Dan at the appropriate moment. So we'll just have you hang tight.
Get to the point. When you're on there, you need to get to the point. Otherwise, we will.
And we want it to be relevant as you're following along the conversation. If you have something relevant to the topic at hand, go ahead and give us a call, and we'll bring you right up into the program. And then also a reminder to share this to your feed.
As Donna is pulling up our next video from last week, a segment that literally was last week, we've talked about free speech, and we at the Liberty Without Compromise Network love the concept of free speech. It's guaranteed. The government shall not infringe. We've had a lot of discussions. Not every discussion I agree with. Not every person that I come into contact with or debate, if you will, do I agree. However, we do believe that free speech is just that. That's why we open up our op-ed area of the Liberty Without Compromise website. However, I've made this very perfectly clear. Our social media accounts are our accounts. This isn't the public square. You're still a guest, no different than I'm a guest if I happen to go on your platform to talk with you. And so, of course, free speech is free, but there are consequences. And we're going to talk a little bit tonight about some of those consequences that happens socially.
And were you ready to play that video?
Yeah, okay. I know you should have just read my mind. I'm sorry.
I was like, maybe there's more to that. Yeah. Okay, so this is a video clip from last week. Don't get confused because we're standing here live and we're going to go do a blast from the past to a week ago.
Awesome. Or wrong or a liar. And in this case, April Lee, you're on notice. You have exactly one more chance. If you come on to any of our pages one more time and you lie, and your current lie, which is the same repeated lie that you have been saying over and over again, that I never served as a law enforcement officer, well, you are a liar. In fact, you're the worst kind of a liar because you've been told numerous times the error of your ways, and you've decided that you're going to disregard that you're going to continue and double down because I dare call myself the Idaho sheriff, that the entire mass out there is being led to believe.
I told her the Secretary of State was okay with that marketing, that they were perfectly okay with it. And she continues to want to entertain the argument that you never served as a peace officer. Yeah. So how dare you? And so today I was having a back and forth with good old April Lee and said, look, stop lying.
Yeah.
Well, what am I lying about? So I said, all the specifics, served as a peace officer. And it sounds like what she's really taking issue with is reserve. Aha, gotcha, reserve. Yeah. And I said, okay, so he served when on duty
for 12 years at no cost to the community while I took on the same responsibilities, the same liabilities, the same exposure when I strapped on my Kevlar vest, put on my uniform and my gun belt, and got into my own single unit police cruiser and took calls for service. So April, how dare you? One more time and you're out, and I will make you famous. So you better shut your pie hole and you better do it post haste.
I think maybe what she really is taking issue with is that you did all of those things, but rather than receiving a paycheck, you gave back to your community.
Yeah. Okay. So that was last week. And of course, April Lee on social media, primarily Facebook.
Yeah.
Has been spreading lies.
Now, what do you say? I'm going to jump in here. What do you say to people who go, you know what, this stuff's going to happen online. Stay above the fray and just ignore it. Why do you think it's important to call people out for what they're doing?
Well,
is it going to cost you votes?
Yeah, some it doesn't matter at all. But they're after experience of over a year campaigning, you realize certain individuals, by the way they will phrase things, their relentlessness, their I don't know, what would you call it? Unnatural obsession.
Yes, I was going to say, to the point, it's confusing. Yeah. It doesn't even make sense. So you think there's got to be more behind this. The
experience has led us to believe that it's operatives working for the other side with alliances with Bob Norris, which, again, it happens. We don't really do that on their end, on our end, but that has been a constant tactic of the Bob Norris, Bruce Matari, Brent Regan, whatever, team, whoever you're on. So we had, right after that broadcast last week, we received a tip that April Lee is a name that's associated as a vendor with the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office. And so I put in a records request to the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office and to the jail division specifically, and asked for some information. We're going to throw that information up real quick. Right, you may find this interesting.
And just before I do that, Lucas on Facebook had a question. I think this is an important one. In that clip we just showed, I referred to as a peace officer rather than police officer. So what would be the difference on that?
Well, peace officer is probably the better term for law enforcement in general, because originally cops were supposed to be preserving the peace, upholding the Constitution and all that good stuff. Today, I don't like the term. We've adopted it, and it's pretty common, but we now refer to most all domestic law enforcement, police officers, sheriff's deputies, as kind of an umbrella, even federal law enforcement. So it's federal police force, etc.
Okay, and I know that the first time I saw that term, just being a civilian, I thought, oh, well, maybe there is a difference. And that could play perhaps into somebody's narrative that you were never a real police officer. So I'm going to bring this up onto the screen for you.
So what we have here is we have a records request that I submitted to the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office. And in it, my question was, because we were dropped a dime, somebody said that April Lee, and they know her from her Facebook, works as a vendor for the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office. So I did a request and asked for the names of all the vendors, etc., and points of contact. And what came up is the current food vendor is a organization called Summit Correctional Service, and the point of contact for the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office is April Lee, Business Development Director.
Yeah, fascinating.
And so there's a couple things we're still investigating because she has said a lot of things that were absolutely false. No matter how many times we set the record straight, she continues the lying, the narrative, and the gaslighting. So second page here, we were able to pull this off of LinkedIn. This is April Lee. She says that she's a business development director for Summit Food Services, a correctional food service and commissary provider to include Idaho as well as California. She also owns and manages a Performance Leadership Institute Incorporated, a law enforcement training and consulting company that focuses on helping law enforcement agencies. Okay, again, most of the time, this doesn't matter. This is one of those instances where you have the right, April, to post what you want specifically about your grievances with me, but you probably should be a little more less disingenuous as to why you're doing it. I mean, after all, you are getting business right now from Robert Bob Norris, Sheriff of Kootenai County, Captain Jeremy Heil, who obviously were completely opposed to me in my race for sheriff. So it makes it almost more heinous. You are representing a company that is providing services on the taxpayer dollar to Kootenai County Sheriff's Office. And in return, you who are representing this government contract, in turn, are lying and attacking the candidate that is running against Bob Norris. I don't know. I think that some of that should be an in-kind contribution to Sheriff Robert Norris's campaign.
Seems like it would be.
Anyway.
Yeah, all the chatter.
We're going to dive into this more. We're going to probably in a future episode, we're going to show you the heinous things that April says over and over again. Outright lies. Look, I understand people can make bad judgment calls. They can get information wrong. I've done it myself recently. We're going to talk about that here in just a second. But the truth of the matter is, if you are going to lie, it's a form of warfare, if you will. It's what would you call it? Mental warfare?
Oh, it most definitely is.
Political hit jobs. Look, there's a lot of people that work with and around Bob Norris that are getting a lot of kickbacks. We've talked about this for well over a year. We've named a lot of names. And this is just yet another example of somebody that's tied very close. We talked about Mike Pedum from North Idaho News.
We did.
His close association with Bob Norris and his malfeasance that he has been participating in. So,
yeah, and I'll take this moment to remind you that we have that piece on Mike Pedum, North Idaho News, and his connection to the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office. And that is available both on our Facebook page, and then we've also done an expose, and that's there on our website, libertywithoutcompromise.com. In that search bar, just type in North Idaho News or Mike Pedum, and you will find that. You'll be very interested to see it's a little over a 10-minute expose that we did on that.
Yeah. So talking about getting information wrong, it happens. And just this last week, I was giving a dialogue in our segment on Liberty Without Compromise, episode 19, specifically talking about the flag law. And I quoted Representative Heather Scott. I played a video of her speaking before a House committee, but I also used a source that attributed quotes to her. And at the time I said, I can't verify these things. However, I did have a conversation with Representative Scott. She was extremely gracious with me. She set the record straight. was able to determine rapidly, which I should have done. This is 100% on Dan Wilson. There is no excuse for me not doing my homework well enough. And so I made statements, or I quoted statements that were attributed to her that were completely made up. Now, I'm going to play a little clip of the apology for those of you who have not seen this yet on YouTube or any of our other social media platforms. It's important that you see this. Apology and a retraction. Dan Wilson with the Liberty Without Compromise broadcast. In recent episode 19, I had a segment where I was discussing the recently passed flag bill here in Idaho. And during this segment, I used a source that turned out not only to be inaccurate, but completely false, attributing quotes to Representative Scott. And while I did make a disclaimer that I could not provide the accuracy of those quotes, nonetheless, I, in error, used those quotes without sourcing it correctly. And for that, I am sorry. I was in the wrong. There is zero excuse for what I did. And I do want to apologize to Representative Scott for any harm or pain that I caused her. I will do better going forward. Now, we have taken that segment and we've completely cut it out of the broadcast. So on any source where we have this video currently published, you will not find that segment there. Those that believe in liberty without compromise are duty bound when they commit any kind of a wrong to make those wrongs right. And that is exactly what I'm here to do. I was wrong and I apologize. Liberty without compromise. So it is true. There is zero excuse when I get things wrong. You are going to, and I'm made aware of the error. I'm going to make it right. And I encourage all men and women in Kootenai County that are of any type of leadership, or not even part of leadership, but part of this community. If you get something wrong, you need to humble yourself. You need to own it, and you need to make it right. This is what we need to do as a community as we are arguing and debating a lot of key things about our local government. We aren't going to fix things if we continue to be at constant odds and never willing to admit when we're wrong. So, again, thank you to Representative Heather Scott for the phone call. Now, I am going to say that throwing those comments aside, I am still opposed to what I believe is shoddy legislation. I don't believe the background as far as the arguments as to why that flag bill was passed without any enforcement or penalties. I still contend that it was grandstanding. I know that I've been going back and forth with some of the state legislators over this and community leaders. Sorry, I have not changed my opinion yet, and it's very unlikely that I will. But anyway, that's a little house cleaning for the moment.
So Attorney General Raul Labrador, is he investigating Sheriff Bob Norris? I'm going to have Dan discuss this. If you would like to call into the program as it relates to the topic at hand, that number is 208-366-4671, and we'll have you join in on the discussion with your questions or comments.
Yeah. Many of you have been asking the question. Lear Asset Management security personnel that were involved with the battering of Dr. Teresa Borenpol, as well as her kidnapping or unlawful imprisonment, along with Gregory Johnson and another, Ben Stallings. They've asked why, and I just confused the whole thing. The attack on them, those last individuals, of course, were not charged with a crime. They were the victims along with Dr. Borenpol. But just to be clear, the Lear security personnel that have been charged with the battery and unlawful imprisonment, I believe is the charge, they did not act alone. We're going to talk a little bit later about Brent Regan's fundamental misunderstanding as to the power of the sheriff and what the title actually says. But people have been saying, hey, if in the police report it says, as we read last week, the detective's conclusion based on his investigation for recommending charges to the the city prosecuting attorney. The injuries caused to Dr. Bornpole were caused by and directed by Sheriff Bob Norris as the director and the Lear Asset guards as those that acted out those violations to Mrs. Bornpole, those crimes against her, if you will. And people say, well, why is Bob Norris not being investigated? We talked a little bit about this last week. Because he's an elected official, he is the chief law enforcement officer of Kootenai County. You can't just have the ability for other law enforcement agencies on small crimes. I mean, there's exceptions to all this. I'm talking in generalities. But if you read between the lines, that detective, and I believe it was Detective Haley, set everything up well enough with his evidence presented and his search warrants and his narrative to say, hey, Sheriff Norris did commit crimes. He directed crimes to take place. So people have been upset. And this next clip we're going to show you is what we talked about last week. Who has the authority to investigate Sheriff Robert Norris? It's not the local prosecuting attorney. In this case, it's the Attorney General. And there are some other variants of that. But for this discussion, the Attorney General. We're going to play a video real quick here from KXLY that came out just yesterday. This is now over 60 days past this event and 60 days past when Brent Nelson issued a press release to the public stating a couple days after that event that Bob Norris was under investigation. There was going to be an investigation. Let's go ahead and watch this video, and we're going to talk a little more about it.
We requested records from the Idaho Attorney General's office about an investigation into Kootenai County Sheriff Bob Norris and his involvement in the town hall meeting where a woman was dragged out.
Today, they denied our request, citing the records are part of an active investigation. Marissa Rio has been tracking the story for us and gives us more details on Sheriff Norris's involvement.
Thank you, Derek and Kirsten. People from the community have asked whether or not Sheriff Norris will be investigated for his role in this town hall. Now, the Coeur d'Alene Police Department investigated this incident and listed Sheriff Norris as a person who was involved, but not as a suspect. Since that investigation, 4 members of the security team involved have been charged with battery and false imprisonment. This video from the town hall shows Sheriff Norris tugging on Teresa Bornpole's arm, trying to get her to leave after she shouted at the speaker. He's later seen directing security to remove her and recording the interaction on his phone. Afterward, the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office sent out a press release saying it would have an independent investigation into this incident by an outside agency. As of today, we have not found evidence that they ever asked for this investigation. Now, under Idaho state law, the Attorney General is to respond and investigate if an elected county officer has allegations that he or she violated state law. The Attorney General's office would not comment any further regarding the active investigation it had cited when denying our public records request. In studio, Marissa Rio for News Now.
Attorney General Raul Labrador is declining to discuss about any active investigations. Reasonable people would conclude that, yes, Sheriff Robert Bob Norris, the colonel of Kootenai County, is in fact being investigated for his participation and possible crimes that took place at that town hall. I want to caution all of you, though, those of you that may be hopeful that justice might be served. Remember that the Attorney General seems to be very close with Brent Regan, the KCRCC, and Dorothy Moon, state GOP chairman. Again, I'm not alleging any impropriety or that things won't be done by the book. We hope that it will be a thorough and just investigation. But remember, at the recent Kootenai County Republican Central Committee Lincoln Day dinner that was held right here in Coeur d'Alene back in February, Raul Labrador showed up and got a lot of photos taken with some pretty self-important individuals.
Yeah,
I'll put that lightly.
On that one, based on some of those facts, Nick Payne, joining us on Facebook tonight, was asking, do you think Raul Labrador is going to put party before the rule of law?
I just don't know.
Do we stand a chance?
I would say we'll always give somebody the benefit of the doubt. We'll have to wait till the conclusion and then find out what he says in his final report. But I have a bigger question for Under Sheriff Brent Nelson. Where's the independent investigation? You said publicly you were going to do this, and nobody seems to know who this organization is. My question is, Brent, Brett, blah, blah, blah.
I was going to correct you, but now that you rolled it out twice, it's Brett Nelson. Brett Nelson.
Sorry, Brett.
Yeah. Brett.
Did Norris tell you not to do it? I mean, what gives? Why would you not have an independent investigation? We want questions answered, such as, why did Bob Norris, who started this whole thing, he's the one that first went hands-on. He's the first one that went up and threatened not only Ben Stallings prior to Teresa Bornpole, when he went and seized him and made him go out of the auditorium, and his vision-impaired wife that had to fight her way to find him once he was manhandled out, as well as Gregory Johnson, who, in my opinion, was the only man in that entire auditorium that stood up and continually verbally voiced his opposition to what was going on. When the rest of my so-called conservative friends that were in attendance there, not a one of the men stood up and said, this needs to stop. So I'm going to say that if it butt hurts you, it butt hurts you, but that is the truth. Gregory Johnson did the right thing. This whole thing with Bob Norris and what he did, we need to know. We need to find out exactly what went on. Why did he not write a report? I mean, anybody that's been in law enforcement that has any kind of documentable action, and I would say going up to a woman and unlawfully removing her from an auditorium in front of hundreds of witnesses, threatening to pepper spray, going hands-on, directing others to carry out your directive that, by the way, people keep saying these guys were deputized. They were not. They were not deputized.
Well, they say it's essentially the same thing.
No, it is not the same thing. But through all this, your sheriff, your 35-year professional, the one that was guaranteed not to get Kootenai County into any kind of civil liability lawsuits, is too stupid, too ignorant to write out a basic report.
It's important to understand why we're still talking about a town hall that occurred February 22nd. Kootenai County Republican Central Committee hosted town hall that by their own invitation, which we still have on file, was open to the public. But it's important to understand why we're still talking about this and investigations that are or not happening, because Kootenai County Republican Central Committee Chairman Brent Regan just came out on Newsmax to control the political narrative. And we're going to be talking about that a little bit.
And we're not going to allow, we are not going to allow this to be whitewashed, and for the so-called Republicans, those of you that supposedly believe in liberty and the Bill of Rights, to violate somebody else's rights just because you don't like her. I want to know, Nelson. Notice I didn't say his name wrong.
just eliminate it.
I want to know, Nelson, where is the investigation? And I encourage all of you in Kootenai County watching this to send a message to Under Sheriff Brent Nelson to ask him, where is the investigation and why isn't it being currently done?
A question from Facebook that came in from Quincy. Thanks for joining us tonight, Quincy. Good to see you. Because I think this can get lost in the shuffle. So he's wondering, wait, what? Who said they were deputies? And that is referring to the narrative that's going around that the guys from Lear Asset Management, who were private security, were automatically deputized by Norris when he pointed and motioned and directed them to remove Teresa Bornpole from the room. So that it has to do with deputization that technically the sheriff can do.
Well, they keep reading, and I didn't pull up the statute, and I'm not going to say it verbatim.
Yeah.
But in essence, it says the sheriff has the duty to basically command the assistance of anybody, unlimited quantity of what he needs in order to secure the county. But there is a difference. We're going to talk about this a little more when we go to Brent Regan and his Newsmax.
Okay, good. So yeah, Quincy, hang on for that.
His Newsmax interview, and we're gonna talk about that. But these people are absolutely wrong. It would actually work once in a while for you guys. Probably good advice to talk to an attorney and quit just circling around your echo chambers of all the people and your confirmation bias as to, by God, this is the sheriff said it, so let it be done. It's not that. We're going to talk about that here coming up very shortly.
Right now, I'm giving myself a little music because it needs the energy. We want to thank our affiliate, Midday Squares. This is a functional chocolate square that satisfies your sweet cravings. It's non-GMO, gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free. It is real chocolate. It comes in 5 or 6 different flavors. You've got peanut butter chocolate bar, cookie dough, brownie.
Love that cookie
dough. A few other
dough.
flavors. 6 grams of protein, 4 grams of fiber. And this bad boy is low in sugar. So you can satisfy that sweet craving at whatever point in the day it comes around. And you can get 15% off your Midday Squares using that affiliate link, which I put into the comments section. So order yours. You're not going to be sorry. Mm-hmm. Dan tells me, he's like, you know what?
Well,
you'll reach for one of those. You're like, you know what? These are...
To eat Quest bars.
Yeah.
Which I never was completely fond of. In fact, I was never fond of them. These things right here, I would eat one after another.
Well, yeah, that is the one problem.
And they don't give you gas. They don't give you gas.
Oh, you just said the quiet part out loud.
Liberty without compromise,
yeah,
baby.
I always say, they're not so hard on your stomach. That's the way I always put it. Dan just flat out say, they don't give you gas. It's important.
It is.
You know, those of us trying to attack our sweet cravings and get the protein in and eat good stuff. You don't want the trade-off to be, and now I'm miserable for the rest of the day.
Indeed.
Yeah. So we've all heard a lot of bad actors on social media, and it seems to be a very popular thing that you see these vile, vulgar individuals coming after us with attacks, and we've seen them do this to other people who have political influence or who are political players here in Kootenai County. Just vile individuals. Mm-hmm. But then they have no issue quoting scripture. Mm-hmm. And it's confusing. You're like, everything I've observed about this person, some of them in that social media town square, so to speak, and then others in person who are vile and vulgar individuals, but proclaim to be Christians and are part of some of the largest, most influential churches here in Kootenai County. And it's confusing. It seems like everyone's quoting scripture nowadays. The more our culture has shifted away from God, the more the herd, that is the direct result of this same secular culture, will quote Bible verses. I've observed, quote, godly people of prominence in the community bragging on social media that they bullied or accosted another person so relentlessly. You and I just saw this one on X. Yeah. Bullied them so relentlessly online that the target of their bullying eventually blocked them. And they tout that like this is a conservative victory. This is a Christian victory. And their scripture of choice in one of these cases, 1 Peter 5:8, be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. And this verse it seems like it could support a demand for some type of animalistic behavior toward our enemies, because after all, Joe Schmo on Twitter surely is the devil in disguise and must be met with devil-defeating force if we intend to ward off evil. Isn't that right? That's what we're trying to do, ward off evil. Our increasingly godless culture has progressively embraced Bible verses for whatever value it brings in the moment, not because it's changed lives, but because it's a fitting platitude to support bad behavior. As a young girl, when I felt distraught or confused about something, my mom always reminded me of this simple thing. God is not the author of confusion. The world is confusing. Things and people around me are confusing. Church leaders are confusing. Politics is confusing. But as my mom said, Dawna, confusion doesn't come from God. Throughout the Bible, I was looking at this, there are 25 scriptures on confusion. And did you know that only one of those speaks of confusion in a positive light? That's 1 Corinthians 14:33, the NIV version. For God is not a God of disorder, but of peace, as in all of the congregation of the Lord's people. The Bible speaks of confusion as a punishment and the result of evil. In the book of Acts, the whole city was filled with confusion. In Isaiah, the city of confusion is broken down. In James, for where envy and strife is, there's confusion and every evil work. Depending on the Bible translation, sometimes confusion and disgrace are used interchangeably. And here's what we know. Large groups of people will pick their idols. That's what people do. They'll decide together who and what they follow and what things they'll fight for in very evil ways that will bring them disgrace. That's disgrace and confusion. Many people will go to confusion together, and that's found in Isaiah 45:16. The Bible even speaks of something called everlasting confusion, and that got me to wondering if confusion has more to do with hell than what we realize. Now, our culture has promoted confusion as an art of warfare. We've been the recipients of this, and heartbreakingly, it is all around us, including our churches. In the end, it will be a small group that has set themselves apart from disgrace and chaos only because they have a heart that follows God, because God is not the author of confusion. He never was, and he never will be.
Yeah.
So sometimes we do like to talk about Bible and Scripture here on Liberty Without Compromise, because how do we really separate that from our roots as a nation?
Yeah. Well, you can, and I think you hit it on the head. People like to weaponize Scripture against people, and it's a balancing act. I mean, if you don't get in and read the Word consistently, you aren't going to have a full grasp on the power of the Word of God. And it isn't just for our willy-nilly, what quote can I grab right now to completely use for my gain. You also have to take other things into consideration and everything into context. And I agree with you. That's why the Spirit is the one that is supposed to be the great discerner for us in a world of confusion. And you and I have talked about this quite a bit. We had a local power player pastor that I have emails from. He's on 95, flies a giant Israeli flag on the side of his building, and look at the gaslighting that he did in the scriptures that he used towards me while he was bullying me, while he was harming me during last year. And we talked about this in episode 1 or 2 of the Power Player Pastor audio podcast. That for those of you that have not heard that yet, it'd be good for you to go and see. But yes, we do not want to weaponize God's word for our own profit. So
it's gotten to the point where when I see scriptures online, it's difficult for that. It just doesn't really set well with me. And I grew up in a Christian home. I was a
Baptist preacher's daughter.
Baptist preacher's daughter. I at one time was a Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night Bible believing Christian. I have spent, I was thinking about this. It seems like, and it could very well be, a quarter of my life serving in the church.
Yeah.
And by no means am I denying Christ or that his scripture is what it says it is. Yeah. But it's become difficult in amidst the chaos to really separate those who are throwing scriptures around to say why can't, their life is serving something very different, and it's just incongruent with putting that scripture out there as some kind of a covering for bad behavior.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I absolutely agree with you. You are way more articulate than I am. So I appreciate your heart on that, and for sharing it with all of our listeners and watchers. I say listeners, watchers. You can tell we're so professional here. I'm so professional with Liberty Without Compromise. And yeah, we hope that when you watch these episodes, you are inspired to do great things for your country and for your community. We hope that you're convicted. We hope that you share with us the things that we're learning along the way. As it was said earlier, iron sharpens iron. And that is really, really true. So sometimes we get accused of doing this just to bash and be caustic. And that's really it does take that flavor sometimes, but ultimately we want to drive people towards truth and righteousness and justice, which I think all of us as Americans really should be striving for.
The article is available on our website, libertywithoutcompromise.com. It's also been posted on our Facebook page, so you can share it from there. You know, I was trolling. There's a way to look back on websites that have been on the internet at some point in time, and you can go into the Wayback Machine and see what somebody was doing on their domain, let's say in 2020. And so I found an interesting piece from the Bob Norris for Sheriff website that I thought was a little interesting. So I'm going to bring this up and we're going to talk about this here for a minute.
All right.
Bob Norris website, Bob Norris for Sheriff website, before he was sworn into office that first time around in 2020. One of his talking points, one of his policies, whatever you call that, he says, this is one of his promises to the people of Kootenai County. You elect me. He says, I will review policies and procedures to ensure public safety, reduce liability risks, and make sure we are providing a quality service to you, the taxpayer. That was Bob Norris from 2020. And I just noticed my dad logged onto the program. That's a first.
Wow.
Just to change the subject there. So I'm curious, your thoughts. I will review policies. Bob Norris says, I will review policies and procedures to ensure public safety, reduce liability risks, and make sure we are providing a quality service to you, the taxpayer. So here we are, 5 years later. He is just into his second term. Has he done those things? Has he reduced liability?
Well, I mean,
has he reviewed policies?
I would assume that he has read policies. I mean, I don't know. Here's what I can tell you. When last summer I requested from Kootenai County Sheriff's Office copies of all of their policies, all of them.
Sorry, Nick Payne says, I bet Matari wrote that for him.
Well, thank you, Nick. You stole the words right out of my
his thunder.
My mouth. Look, I requested from the sheriff's office policies, and I was flat out told there was only one that existed, and it was a basic deputy policy. And then I said, so you're telling me that there are none for canine, for SWAT, for the helicopter, for the jail? I mean, it went on and on, search and rescue, and told no records exist. Now, again, I'm not beating up on the records clerks who are working hard. By the way, I love the record clerks, not only in Kootenai County, but also Coeur d'Alene School District and
phenomenal.
The city of Coeur d'Alene.
Phenomenal.
The city of Coeur d'Alene, man. You want to talk about high-speed records division and clerks. Anyway, I was told no records exist. So a week later, I put in a different request about canine bite ratios for patrol canines. And I received back the stats that I was asking for, but also a canine policy. Well, wait a second. I was told that no other policies exist. And so I, kind of, compelled them that if I wasn't given the stuff that I was requesting, that I was probably going to escalate it. And once I get about 9 policies altogether, everything from search and rescue to canine to SWAT. But here is why I take exception to that statement. I've been in business for 26 years. We live and die by policies. If you don't have good policies, you open yourself up to great liability, as well as you have to have guidelines for your employees, as well as for your management, for the owners, all of that. We have to comply with all sorts of regulatory agencies, as well as internal things, and it goes on and on. I received policies, which I'm still in possession of, that were in edit mode. They were given to me in a Word document that were in the process of being edited.
Now, okay, so Norris makes a campaign promise that he's going to oversee and ensure that policies are in place. You're asking for these records of policies and procedures, and it's 3.5 years into his term.
Almost 4 years.
Almost 4 years into his term. So it's not like, well, wait a second, Wilson's asking for something that the sheriff hasn't had time to review or produce.
And in fact, of the very few things he did in his first 4-year terms, besides coffee and donuts with the sheriff, and being a member of the Micah Grange, the policies that I saw, at least half of them, did not even have what volume they were, what edition, how many revisions, page numbers, footers. I mean, it's a mess. An organization as large as the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office, especially that's operating under ICRIMP, which is the Idaho Consolidated Risk Management Pool, that's self-insured, that Norris is tapping into pretty heavily right now with these lawsuits. The reality of it is that the policies that I found were extremely poor. You should never give the public your versions that are in edit mode. Your employees should not have edit mode policies that they have to sign off on, but it gets even better. The policy for the volunteer helicopter, you want to talk about a huge debacle and a mess. Non-existent when it came to the interoperations between the liability aspect of the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office and this private entity that it is offering their helicopter. In fact, we know that it was so bad that just a few weeks ago, Kootenai County Sheriff's Office and the county attorney had to go before the Board of County Commissioners to request $10,000 of public money to retain outside counsel that specializes in aviation policies. In fact, we know that there to this date has never been produced a real policy for this helicopter as is required for by the MOU. So you literally have no ability to hold anything accountable when it comes to the helicopter program that we're all liable for. And then, of course, there's the LPRs. I'm the one that broke it to everybody in August that Bob Norris had already been using license plate recognition cameras and software without anybody in the county's, knowledge. And not only was he using them in the demo mode, but he had absolutely zero policies to use these cameras. That means that anybody using them did not necessarily understand the legal ramifications. What is federal law? What is state law? What is data retention? It wasn't until I publicly called him out at a town hall in August of last year before the Board of County Commissioners. It wasn't me personally. I had a letter read into the record. But folks, this is a guy that has over and over again lied to you about what his abilities are and what he's going to do. He's a lazy, incompetent turd. Anybody that wants to talk to me in the next couple days and wants to see the proof, I will gladly sit down with you one-on-one to show you the proof. But nobody cares because he's a KCRCC hack. Mm-hmm. He's the poster child of incompetency that the Kootenai County Central Committee propped up. They put him into office, put him over that finish line again. My question is, how are you guys liking these lawsuits that you guys are currently involved with? Well, I guess you're only involved because you're taxpayers, but, your guy now in two pretty significant defamation lawsuits or civil rights lawsuits.
Well, I think it's a tough one because if you don't feel the financial pain, if it's not coming out of your bank account currently, they're not tapping into your wallet, it's out of sight, out of mind.
Well, I better technically say the second one's a tort claim, which is the...
Get your facts straight, Wilson.
The pre-runner to a pretty significant civil rights lawsuit. So, yeah.
Well, Brent Regan hits the big time. He makes an appearance on a more national level program. I think some of you listening in may want to join in on this part of the conversation. You can do that at 208-366-4671. Again, that number is 208-366-4671 as Dan unfolds this topic for us. Is Brent Regan, does he have a chokehold on the political narrative here in Kootenai County? What was he talking about on that Newsmax program?
Yeah. Well, Newsmax apparently had come out and done a story. I still haven't seen that story where they were covering the charging of the Lear management folks and the tort claim that was filed by Borenpol against Brent Regan, the KCRCC, Robert Norris, and the county. And so apparently Brent Regan's PR team, I don't know if he pays for it or if he actually knows how to contact these people, or if they paid him. It was suggested in a Twitter, I think, message, hey, was this a paid interview? Don't know. But yeah, Brent, who, look, Norris is a lot of things. I thought he was incredibly stupid after he was served the tort claim and then the eventual lawsuit against Penny Ann Collinson to then continue to badger her using the Kootenai County Sheriff's letterhead, right? Didn't learn his lesson. Well, since this incident, he's shut up, hasn't said anything. In fact, he lets his attorney, Kinzo Mahara, do all of his talking for him. Brent Regan hasn't learned that yet. Brent Regan either believes he is above the law, believes that he's untouchable because of his political connections, or he is the stupidest Mensa member I have ever run into.
Well, his thinking gets a little faulty when he's on his Mensa cycle.
Yeah.
Ka-ching. There you go. Yeah.
Play that video.
All right.
Well, as I was talking about earlier, the left ran a successful campaign, and this actually got by us. But look, I'd rather correct the record than pretend it didn't happen. Earlier this week, we ran a segment on what we thought, based on court documents, media reporting, and social media, was a story of an innocent woman who appeared to get dragged out unlawfully by civilian people out of an Idaho town hall meeting by private security. But it turns out it was not a town hall meeting. It was a private political meeting that was paid for and rented. And this is a locally known left-wing agitator. And it was calculated. The left played the victim, screamed for the cops, told half the story. And the reason it got by us is because they rushed to file legal motions, which became the basis for our opinion for that segment, because we thought, hey, when you file a legal motion, you're affirming things to the truth, right? Well, it turns out they lied, or at a minimum, misled the court. So we're here today to set the record straight. Brent Regan was the chairman of that county Idaho Republican Central Committee, here to set it straight. All right, so Brent, I'm really happy that somebody reached out to me that was in that crowd over there, because from what it looked like and all the court documents, she seemed to be the victim. What really happened?
Well, thank you, Carl, and thank you for your dedication to the truth. It's very much appreciated. Yeah, we started the meeting at the very beginning, and it was announced that this was a private meeting. We're not a government body. We're a private organization. It's the official Republican Party in North Idaho, but we're not a city council or school board or highway district, so it's not.
So it's not public.
Yeah, exactly. So there are about 450 people there, and the hecklers started immediately. They heckled the invocation. And that went on for about maybe a half an hour or so. Mm-hmm. The woman in question was asked to behave at least 7 times.
Which is not on video, by the way. It conveniently is not on video.
Oh, it's on video.
And then the sheriff went up to her and said that he asked her to leave, to be escorted out. And he said, "Come with me or be arrested." And she resisted. And then he said, "Come with me or be escorted out." And she replied, "Escorted." And that's when the sheriff turned to the 2 of the security guys and said, "Here, help me get her out of here."
Well, and to also back you up on that real quick, not to interrupt you, sir, but what happens is in your state, a sheriff, if they ask a civilian to accomplish a duty by law, they're essentially deputized and therefore immune. So those people
stop this thing. Okay. I can't just let this thing play. There's too much there. I should have been commenting.
We can start and stop. Go for it.
Yeah, number 1, and we're going to pull up a slide here in a second. Brent Regan spinning this like a Peloton cycler, working out hard in the morning, trying to lose that extra 30 pounds.
Go.
Spinning this thing. Number 1, let's go to my slide. We're going to come in and out of this thing.
That's okay. Got it.
This galls me to no end, because this is 100% horseshit. There is so much. And again, you guys got to go to Twitter and follow Marcus Not Realist, because he breaks it down by sentences of what Brent Regan and his narrative has said from the beginning. And he shows the videos, but we're going to look at something here real quick. let's go to the very last page of this slide, if you would, please. Brent Regan at the very beginning says, oh, this was a private event.
Mm-hmm.
It was a private event. Once they got there, we told them it's a private event. Well, folks, here is the official advertisement, spelling errors and all. And I'm not making fun of the spelling because I'm the worst on Twitter.
It happens.
My fat thumbs.
It happens.
But notice what it says. Get updates of the 2025 legislative session from your legislators. Hosted by the KCRCC, and small print down below. But it says Coeur d'Alene High School on February 22nd, 25, 12:30 p.m. Hey, guess what? Brent, knucklehead, Mensa scholar. You've been proven over and over again that you're absolutely incorrect. You're an idiot. In fact, let's go to the first page of the slide, because it's important that we break this down. You may snowball the Newsmax folks because you don't have a Dan Wilson to sit on the opposite side of the screen to give a rebuttal, which, by the way, Newsmax, that would have been an awesome thing for you guys to have done, is to get some other side, because your credibility goes right in the crapper when, listen at the very beginning what he says. This is what they've been doing, the tactics of. This has nothing to do with the tactics of Bourne-Poll and whether or not, as Jordan Redmond, our representative here from Kootenai County, had to say on his interview with Matt Edwards on the Idaho Signal, where he claims that they all had prior knowledge that people were going to come and cause a disruption, some 30 to 50 individuals. This has nothing to do with the response or the actions of those individuals. What we're talking about here is Bob Norris, probably in collaboration, speculating with the KCRCC, some of the leadership, the inner super secret inner circle, probably with Lear Asset Management and their security ops plan. We don't know. But this whole thing revolves around Bob Norris's handling and the violation of Ms. Bourne-Poll's civil rights. Made this clear over and over again. I'm not for anybody disrupting. Supreme Court's ruled many times on First Amendment issues, Brent. In fact, you would think you would be smart enough to actually read some of those to find out what's considered to be a disruption versus what's not a disruption. And when you have your fat loudmouth Ed Baharana running his mouth, inciting her, and then you're going to claim that she was disruptive. I mean, was she disruptive before that? Was she disruptive while Ed Baharana was engaging her, or what? This is all about civil rights violations for Bourne-Poll, First Amendment violations, Fourth Amendment violations, and hell, we haven't even talked about Gregory Johnson. Bro, I think that I would be so worried if I was Norris, because I think that Gregory Johnson has even bigger consequences to Lear, to Norris. This has everything to do about what we allow. What is government supposed to do, Brent? It is to uphold people's rights. And you keep spinning it over and over and over and over again. First page of that slide.
One of the things he's spinning also is that it was a disruption, but by definition, when you have an event, a political style or legislative event, a disruption would include any disruption. So applause and things that are to
people
the
shouting,
affirmative that agree with your group. So when you're talking, if this really, you're trying to spin this as private event, no disruptions allowed, then that means you're more in a debate style forum where everybody remains completely quiet.
And by the way, they weren't telling people to stop clapping.
No. So that part was very one-sided.
We're going to go ahead and we're going to read this first slide here. Hopefully it's blown up well enough for you guys to find out. But this is a statement by the Coeur d'Alene Public Schools, who put out their press release the 25th. So this is 3 days after the event. We're going to hit a couple highlights. Background. They say the Kootenai County Republican Central Committee, KCRCC, submitted an online facility use form to the district requesting to hold a public legislative town hall event at the Coeur d'Alene High School on Saturday, February 22nd, 2025. The KCRCC advertised the event to the community as a town hall meeting where local and state leaders would meet with the public about the Idaho legislature's work and things happening in Washington, D.C. The facts. The Coeur d'Alene School District schools are public buildings and are available to community groups to host public events as long as the nature of those events is consistent with the requirements listed in the district's facility use agreement. Note, the district does not provide security or other services for events held in a district facility by outside organizations. We're going to conclude by these two important statements. Number one, the district granted the KCRCC's request to hold the town hall events at the Coeur d'Alene High School based on the facility use agreement application that stated the event was open to the public and the public building venue would provide a neutral location where local residents and their elected officials could engage openly with one another. And number two, at no point was the KCRCC's town hall featuring participation by the area's elected state legislators represented to the district as a private meeting. Had it been presented as such, the district would have denied the request.
Doesn't it seem, with the way that it was advertised to the community and the type of gathering that it was, that it's a bait and switch kind of tactic?
It is. And let me be very clear, because this is one of the things that absolutely disgusts me about the Republicans in this community that are fully invested. They can't see through their Teresa was being disruptive blinders to not see how insidious this is. We've talked about laws should be clear. When we do things in public, you shouldn't have to have a law degree to understand the intent. If somebody says to you, hey, free lunch, and there is no other terms, you go to get that free dinner thinking that it's a free dinner. And then you find out someone wants to sell you a timeshare.
Oh,
right?
Yeah. It's free cruise. You're going on a cruise.
But look, people were, I would say, enticed. Mm-hmm. They were led to come to an event where, what does it say? What does that say in their town hall flyer?
I'll bring that back up again. And then the question remains too, what other access do people have to their legislators? Who else is hosting forums for the community to ask questions or interact with their legislators? They are the legislators and representatives. Look, I've all said of this. The people.
All these legislators, if they truly believe in liberty, if they truly believe in what they claim that they do, what they stand for, they would hold these public events at a state facility or a county facility where it's neutral, it's a government building, and if it came at a cost, they would pay for that cost. They all have the ability to help chip in and to pay for these venue costs. Here's what it says again, folks. Get updates of the 2025 legislative session from your legislators.
Hosted by the KCRCC.
Confirmation bias is real. You guys are going to see in a couple years, most likely, I don't know how long it'll take, but when Wendy Olson mops up the floor with Brent Regan, with Bob Norris, the taxpayers, and all those others that were involved, I'm certain that your argument then is going to be, well, it was rigged. The jurors were biased. The courts were corrupt. They couldn't bring evidence that would exonerate the KCRCC. And I'm going to say this again to the legislators. I'm ashamed of many of you because none of you stood up at any time to stop what was going on. You're our damn representatives. Some of you have been there for over 10 years. No leadership out of any of you. None. And you wonder why people turn away from Republicans. We're supposed to be better. It's no different than the conversation we were having about the churches. Mm-hmm. Start living what you actually believe and what you stand for and what you say you stand for. Quit with this bait and switch, Brent. I mean, it's ridiculous that you will continually open up your mouth. And I'm certain Wendy Olson is loving this, the attorney for Bornpole that filed the $5 million tort.
Well, sure, but the wheels of justice move slowly. And like you said, that 2-year prediction that this will take, very likely true. And so there's a lot for Brent Regan to gain in a 2-year time frame of things that need to be accomplished in that Republican Party. And this kind of goes into a back seat somewhere. So if he can regain public trust by getting into the media now and spinning that, it serves to benefit him quite a lot over the 2 years that this will likely take to go through the court system. Did you want to watch the rest of that interview?
We'll watch, and then I want to come back and talk about the fallacy of believing the sheriff deputizes people.
Okay.
Should not be charged. They should be protected under Idaho Code 3122.2.
You're absolutely right. Under the duties of the sheriff, he can command any citizen to assist him in the accomplishment of his duties.
Yeah.
So, and that should be get out of jail free card, if you will.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. Or at least they should be protected by the blanket that, police officers understand that. But the problem is, and this is why, like, when this person reached, I was like horrified that we got this wrong, because we looked like into all
you
the
didn't
court
get it wrong.
But this is what the left has been doing all over the country, because they've done this and they've run successful campaigns against people like yourself, and even have people like me, which I'm happy to go on and say, like, hey, dude, I got it wrong, if we can get to the truth. But a lot of people don't. They just breeze over it, and that's the rest of the story.
Well, we're just a little central committee up here in North Idaho. We got a couple handfuls of people that volunteer to help promote Republicans in the area and help get them elected. And, we raise some money and to do that, and all that money goes to that. And there is a concerted effort to turn Idaho blue.
Yeah.
And they're pouring millions of dollars, and there are these Soros-funded NGOs that are working. There's and these kinds of decisions that the police made, where they didn't charge the woman but turned around and charged the security, that just invites lawlessness and chaos. It's terrible.
I mean, that's the lawfare that we're all very worried about. Brent, I wish I had more time on this, but I really genuinely do appreciate you guys reaching out and helping us get this right.
Yeah, if you could send your viewers to kcrcc.com, that'd be great.
All right, you just did. All right, Brent.
Yeah, I would say there's a concerted effort to turn Idaho blue, and it's not happening at the hands of Teresa Bornpole.
That's happening at the policies and the behavior of Brent Regan.
Mm-hmm.
The guy that took $75,000 of PPP COVID money during the pandemic when he was allegedly, his own words, producing components for the medical industry in support of COVID relief. 75,000, he's a very wealthy individual from everything we've been told, but yet
not fiscally conservative.
Mr. Conservative that wants to sit there and tell everybody how to be conservative. You're the rhino, Brent, even though everybody's the rhino. You're a rhino, Brent. But let's talk about a couple things that you said that are completely stupid, Brent. So this frames the mentality of why Brent thinks he's untouchable.
Again, if you want to chime in on this, the number's 208-366-4671, 208-366-4671. He
says that those Lear guys, because they were doing what Bob said, should get basically a get out of jail free card.
Yeah, that was bold.
Do you guys understand the mentality? So let's think about this. Do you really think that a sheriff can command anybody to do what he wants, even if it's unlawful, and he's still covered? One of the stupidest things is they keep repeating this 31-222. There is a difference, folks, between a sheriff that delegates his responsibilities to his deputies, which Bob Norris should have done that day. He should have had his deputies there, or Coeur d'Alene police. He should have never went hands-on. He should have kept his distance. He should have observed. But Bob Norris, and there's a former federal prosecutor that I spoke with just yesterday here in Kootenai County, who said Bob's biggest problem is Bob's emotion. He was playing to all the people that already voted for him, but he has to show himself to be the big guy. But you really don't understand how it works, Brent. When you delegate as a sheriff responsibilities to your deputies, it's a mutual relationship. Sheriff offers a deputization to an individual. The individual accepts that responsibility and duty. And then what do? They swear an oath. That is a deputization. What you are erroneously attributing a deputization to is actually what's called commanding aid, which he does have a right to command aid, but there isn't the legal covering, the same as when you are a deputy performing law enforcement duties. If you as an individual are ordered by a sheriff to do something that you are uncomfortable with or think that's illegal, you have the responsibility and the right to say, I'm not going to do this. And by the way, if you're working security, you should understand the laws of the state you're working in to know what you can and can't do. Now, I think that eventually they're going to make the argument that they were under duress, operating in the authority of the sheriff, and who's going to tell the sheriff no. But no, it's not the same damn thing, Brent. Don't they teach you this in school? I mean, did you go to school in like the 1800s? I mean, for him to continually use this over and over again blows my mind. And then to disparage Coeur d'Alene PD. That's a political hit, man. Maybe you're used to Bob Norris doing favors for you, kind of like the power player pastor who bragged that he calls Bob up and says, hey, I'm concerned that there are illegals down at the local store. You need to go down there and check it out. And allegedly, according to this power player pastor, he goes right down there and Bob Norris, and he checks it out and comes back and reports back to this power player pastor. Maybe that's why so many of these political operatives in Kootenai County, these power player people, love Norris so much because they know that he does whatever they say.
Yeah, they've been used to having complete control over all these moving parts and pieces and used to having that control for far too long.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can spin it any way you want, but Brent, you really apparently don't understand how this works and what's going to happen. And I'm going to be sitting along the sidelines observing how much of a train wreck this is going to be. If every last car is going to come off and be destroyed, or some of them going to survive, but this is going to be the train wreck of train wrecks after the Penny Ann Collinson case, which last week was, there was a hearing, and then the judge at the 11th hour came in and disqualified himself and went to another Kootenai County judge. And that judge too disqualified himself. So judges in this town don't even want to preside over Bob Norris' case. They had to ship it to a judge up in Bonner.
Yeah, the one thing I will disagree with you on, and you're probably somewhat tongue in cheek saying, Brent doesn't understand these things when going to school in the 1800s. I think he fully understands what he's doing, but as a stall tactic, it's important to sequester that public narrative and that social narrative right now because it buys them a couple more years.
And,
all right.
and Brent loves to threaten to sue anybody and everybody. He's already at some point threatened legal action against me, right? If you don't do what Brent wants,
we knew it was inevitable because if there's people have tried along the way to speak out against or to question that KCRCC stronghold and the Brent Regan stronghold, but as soon as they do question it, they're ousted.
Look, I'm going to say this, and you can be as angry as you want, but go to Political Potatoes online. Political Potatoes. It's a guy by the name of Gregory Graff. Gregory Graff. Look, I don't agree with a lot of his opinions. I agree on many of them. So we're not aligned 100%, but I respect what he has to say, and he lays out some great history of politics right here in the state, and especially up in Kootenai County. He had a podcast a year ago where he had a reporter that talked about extremism. Again, I didn't agree with his guess. I thought there was a lot of inconvenient mistruths in it, but nonetheless, you should be getting your information from all sources in the state to be able to align it with what is true, what isn't, and make your own determination. We're going to talk lastly tonight, our quote of the week from Founding Fathers. Last week we strayed and went to a philosopher, a theologian. This week, we are back in the saddle with a founder's quote, Thomas Paine, and he says, you got that slide up to make certain? Cool. A body of men holding themselves accountable to nobody ought not to be trusted by anybody. I'll say it one more time. A body of men holding themselves accountable to nobody ought not to be trusted by anybody. KCRCC, you guys have absolutely crossed the Rubicon when it comes to not being accountable to anyone. Show me any place where in the past several years, you guys have collectively as a group owned anything that you did wrong, maybe that you should have done better on. I mean, I could stand up here for the next 20 minutes and talk about things that you guys did in this past year, including Bob Norris's allowing the Fraternal Order of Police, their political action committee, to use the sheriff's office resources for their political endorsements, and how Brent Regan knew what was going on and did nothing to stop that. No accountability to their endorsed candidate, Bob Norris. This town hall event. Those of you inside the KCRCC that are there because you want to do good, you work hard, you have doorbelled your neighborhoods. You have worked hard at booths and trying to get people to come into the fold of the Republican Party that used to stand for things that were pretty important for freedom-loving, liberty without compromise individuals. I believe in you. I know that not all of you are there because you're part of the cool kids. You have worked your butts off to get to where you are, and you're doing the hard lifting. But it is time to oust Brent Regan. He's been there for far too long. He's not a man that accepts accountability for anything, and you know this. And those that immediately surround him that are a part of this problem need to go. Why is there a war right now inside? Why is there right now a push to move Dan Bell and Dave Riley? Why is Brent associating with Agent Tiki himself, David Riley? I'm urging you guys to band together and to replace Brent Regan and to turn this thing around. You can still hold your high morals. You can still hold your beliefs and work hard to accomplish what you need to do, but it needs to be done in a fair manner. It needs to be above board. It needs to be done through the Constitution, but it needs to be done. And there needs to be a change in the cabal of the KCRC. I appreciate all of you that are watching tonight and that have been following us for the past several months. Folks, things are still tough around the country and in the world. And if we don't get our own houses in order, our liberty, our precious liberty, will be gone. And it'll be stolen by those that claim that they were upholding your liberty, but were enslaving you. We already have seen what the left will do given the opportunity. They're not going to stop. We are in the fight of our lives to turn back to the principles of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, not only at a federal level, but at a state and a county level. So, as always, my encouragement to you is to remember that we did not descend from fearful men. We descended from brilliant men who studied history. They understood the philosophy. I made it wrong last week when I said, by the way, that John Locke was from France. I don't know why I said that. He's an Englishman.
You got to correct it. Probably should go on Newsmax and correct the record.
Those men did dedicate their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. Now it's up to you, wherever you are in whatever sphere of influence, no matter how small or how great, to be strong and of good courage and to promote liberty without compromise. And as always, I will be your biggest supporter. God bless you all. Look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you for joining us tonight on the Liberty Without Compromise live stream broadcast, the only local politically conservative and liberty-minded program in Kootenai County, with your hosts, Dan and Dawna Wilson. Remember to get your hands on some of these midday squares: non-GMO, gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free, real chocolate, 6 grams of protein, 4 grams of fiber, low in sugar. It's our tasty snack. That link to save 15% off your entire order is right there in the comment section. And by purchasing those yummy midday squares, you can help support the Liberty Without Compromise program. For those of you listening back on our podcast, be sure to join us live here Wednesday night at 7 p.m. You can listen and subscribe to our podcast wherever you get your shows. And then remember to enter to win the Liberty Without Compromise embroidered snapback trucker hat. You can do a whole bunch of other things. Purchase your apparel, all the goodies right there on our website at libertywithoutcompromise.com. And with that, we'll see you next week.
Cigar.
That's where we're going next, right?
Jefferson's bourbon, man. It's all about liberty. Night.